Here we are. My name is Mr. Chipman. I teach biology and AP Biology at Murray High School in Murray, Kentucky. This is Unit 3, Populations, AP Environmental Science, 3.3 Survivorship Curves. I love survivorship curves. One of the most fun lab experiences I've ever had was doing a survivorship curve at the town that I live in, Murray, Kentucky. In college, I went to school here, and we went out and got birth and death dates for 100 random tombstones and did a survivorship curve in Murray, Kentucky. Fascinating lab. Hey, there's an idea for you teachers. Let's talk about survivorship curves. You can see our x-axis is age in relative units, and our y-axis is the number of survivors in a logarithmic scale. Right, and so we're going to look at these three different types. These curves can be used to show relative survival rates at a particular time, what percentage of the population is still surviving, right, as they age or as they move on the x-axis. You can see type 1 has a relatively high survival rate until later in life, and then type 2 has a constant, and then type 3 sort of drops off really fast. So we're going to look at these three and look at the differences between them. And this looks like this person's falling down the mountain there, and this bird's like sliding. That wasn't in there. Okay, type 1. The blue whale. This is a great example of a type 1 curve. Why is it a great example of a type 1 curve? Well, type 1 curves have a high survival in early and middle life, meaning that low mortality rate and high in middle, but most mortality or most death occurs in the older ages. Why is this? Well, it's characteristic of a K-selected species with high parental care, right? So we're caring for our young when they're young, and making sure they don't die at a higher rate, and that's why high survivability until they reach the end of their life. Humans, elephants, whales, bears, type 1. Gotta mention bears. I love this picture. Look at that squirrel. It's like, hey, you talking about me now? Yeah, we are. Type 2 curve's not a curve at all. It's a straight line. It's a constant line, right? Is there a time when the slope is different? No. So that means that for type 2 animals, their rate of death is the same, whether they're infant or middle age or adults or old age, it doesn't matter. They're the same. There's an equal chance of them dying at any point in their life, right? Why is this? Because they're usually a prey species, right? They usually die to predators or disease. A lot of birds are examples of type 2. Squirrels, an example. Any sort of prey species is going to be a good example of a type 2 survivorship curve. Type 3, it's kind of the opposite of type 1, right? High mortality early in life because they have, you can see here, most of the offspring are going to die really early on, right? And so tadpole, frogs are a great example. Frog lays, hundreds of eggs, and very few of those hundreds are going to survive into adulthood to reproduction themselves. Usually are selected species, very, very little parental investment. Survivors tend to live longer. Once they survive and get out of that early stage, they do tend to reproduce. Sea turtles, dandelions, frogs, oysters, all kinds of different stuff. So let's look at the different reproductive strategies. We don't use the same words that I've used in AP Biology, so or at least right now, we're not using them. But a lot of times you'll see this word reproductive strategy to kind of talk about these different, K-selected versus R-selected. This is a picture of a century plant. Century plant's a great example of a strange sort of reproductive strategy. They bloom once, right? And very, very long time between when they're planted and when they bloom, and they produce a ton of offspring, a ton of seeds, and then they die. So that is one reproductive strategy. It's obviously successful because the plant is still around, right? It's still around. Versus a K-selected species that has a much higher investment, right? Usually stable environments. You have as opposed to a desert, which is a volatile type environment, right? High investment in their young, and versus an R-selected species is going to produce a ton of offspring, high energy output, Very little care involved in that. And so very different there. Sea turtles, common example of a type 3 curve because they give birth to a ton of different ones. Very few hatchlings even make it to the ocean. A lot of them get eaten by seagulls, and people pick them up, and they just don't make it, right? It's really hard for this little guy to survive because it's just a bite for some big fish or whatever. But if they do survive, they usually live a long time because they grow to be these big things and they reproduce. Songbirds, I don't have a picture of songbirds. I got people and turtles. Songbirds risk predation through life. There's any moment the hawk's going to swoop down in their life, right, suddenly. So that'd be a type 2, whereas humans, high parental investment, even though our kids are desperate to hurt themselves, we try to keep them from doing it, right? We want them to survive. We want them to do well. It's a great example of a type 1 curve. Mortality doesn't happen until toward the end of the average life expectancy. Very important idea. Let's look at a practice problem. Pause the video if you need to. Let's read it together. A researcher studying 2 species finds the following. Species A shows low infant mortality. Most individuals survive to adulthood. Mortality rises sharply in old age. Species B produces thousands of eggs, but only a small fraction survive to adulthood. Which conclusion is most accurate? So we know that species A is a type 1 curve, B is a type 3 curve, just based on the descriptions. So let's go find that in ABCD. Species A's are selected. It's not. It's not. Both species A and B are type 2. They're not. Species A is K-selected. We're good so far. Type 1 curve. B is R-selected type 3 curve. We like C. We're going to go with C. We're not reading D. I hope that 3.3 was helpful for you because 3.4 is coming up soon.